So one of the questions I often get is how do we balance between, on one hand, we say you need to have grit, you need to have perseverance and tenacity to keep following through when you're trying to do something new and unproven and very challenging. And on the other hand, how do you know when to quit if something really isn't working? When do you call it a failure and move on to the next thing? And that's a difficult question because there's no clear-cut answers. But I'd like to try to offer some guidelines. First, when we try to do something new, there's always an end user in mind. And the key is figuring out what they have to say about the new idea. Does it really excite them? Would they feel, look, I know it's still not working and it's buggy, but this would really make a big difference in my life? Versus, you introduce something and the reaction from your end users are, meh. And so that for me is a key telling point on whether we need to keep working and refining and tweaking something to get the execution and the proposition right, but that the idea and intent has captivated the imagination of the end user, even when it's in a raw stage. You can clearly tell if people are excited about the idea because they can see and imagine how it changes their lives. Secondly, ideas don't live in a vacuum. We all have multiple options, different features that we want to introduce, different plans. Last year I talked about a backlog of priorities, how we need to define a key list of things that we want to pursue. And so when one thing doesn't seem to work, it's often good to reflect on what are the other options that are on our list. Sometimes that may be our only bet and it's better off continuing to push through versus when we look at it now that the feedback that we've received, are we better off going back to the list and saying, maybe there's these other alternatives that's worth our time to pursue? The last guideline for me, which is probably hardest to explain, but I use it a lot, is I really internalize and ask myself, if this particular idea or initiative doesn't work, am I going to regret it now for not really continuing to try or not? And it's that feeling of internal drive that this is something that I feel very strongly about. It resonates with my core vision and purpose that I really believe in or not. And there are a lot of things that we do that doesn't really always connect very strongly. But for me, I'd rather keep doing something if I felt it really connected very strongly to the sense of core mission and purpose. So hopefully that's useful, and next time when you think about have you reached that point of failure, look back and consider whether, number one, has the user given you some feedback that's encouraging, that you just need to keep tweaking the tactics around it, or secondly, do you have other alternatives that you can work on instead, and lastly, whether the idea or initiative that you're working on really connects to your core sense of mission and purpose. All the best.